and the organizations that you mentioned, there is an urgent need, the organization, and in one representing my country, we have to move beyond rhetoric. Usually we keep on repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. Strengthening and also a huge diplomatic mobilization at national, continental, and international level. To me, what we should be doing is to strengthen the Pan-African institutions. We have mentioned about Pan-Africanism a number of times this morning. I think it's very important to Pan-Africanism. We should agree on what it means because our deeds go against that, some of our actions. And I truly support this intergenerational dialogue that we should be having from the leaders to the African Union instruments, normative and legal mechanism through which member states can foster greater political and economic integration. But when you look at the statistics, since the OAU time, 1963, up to now, if I'm not mistaken, only half of the treaties that these organizations have adopted have entered into force, although discussed and voted for it. There is a need to have a program to accelerate, really, ratification and domestication of AU treaties. We cannot invent the wheel each and every time. We have standards in our major texts, including the constitutions of our countries. We have seen how these legal teeth, I would say, have served many countries. I've seen it in Kenya, for instance. We have to leverage on the regional economic communities. I remember have stopped the proliferation because at one point we thought that REX would be the solution, so that's the good number, but we stopped there. So we have to leverage with what we have to have a good division of labor between the African Union and the REX. So countries, individual governments will have to work for that. I would say we have to go beyond also government and regional organizations to build a real diplomatic coalition for this cause. Since we are in Ghana, and Accra is the seat of the IFCFTA on former colonizers, and invest really in social equity. IFCFTA is able to, should be able really to penalize corporations benefiting from historical exploitation. I fully agree with what His Excellency President Mahama just said, especially on democracy. I mean, civil society, women, youth should be given the space. Governments should engage them. But reparations is not about money, only about money. It's money, of course, but it goes beyond acknowledgement of the horrible situation our continent went through. We have to get our due. Fighting to have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council is what we should be having as a reparation for our marginalization. The reform of the financial institutions and so on, our leaders have been saying it time and again. So money cannot buy dignity, money cannot buy respect, money, we have to be at the table. I truly believe that, having said that we need also to have credibility when we talk about those. Reparations, okay. Justice, we need it. Human rights, respect, of course. But how do we deal about in terms of justice in our individual countries? Are human rights respected as they should be? Now there is no colonizer. We're talking about our own people. Human rights issues and so on. So we cannot, I'm happy to see it, open the space to other groups. So our actions should not be just mere words, but we have to get that credibility. So for basic freedoms, for democracy to prosper, I think we have all it needs in our hands. And if we talk about repairing for what has happened in the past, we should be a good example in how we govern in terms of social justice, in terms of democracy, and so on and so forth. And there is no need to elaborate on that. We know where we stand. So I think these are the, my views on this issue, to balance between our demands and where we stand in terms of countries which should be the basis of the Africa we want, that His Excellency President Masisi has eloquently elaborated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. You have restated that reparations not just about money, but about dignity, about global reform, about the claim by the African Union for permanent seats, an increase in the number of seats in the non-permanent category of the United Nations Security Council. Well said, Excellency. Now let me turn my attention to former Vice President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Mujuru. Do African women and those in the diaspora have enough space to promote social justice, restitution, and political rights? It's so important that we'll listen to your experience as number 2 in the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me this floor. Let me begin with clarity. African is not monolithic, so to speak. Women and those in the diaspora do not have enough space to fully advance social justice, restitution, and political rights. I'm here speaking as a freedom fighter. I didn't just start as vice president. I started as a fighter for freedom for everybody who needed it. So, talking of diasporians is the next stage that Africa has decided to embrace.
Nos photographs, please. Members of Parliament.
Well taken. So to then involve the diasporians, they should be able to be convinced that at least at those levels, after struggles have been forged, independence achieved, there are things that governments have committed themselves into doing, causing practical some cases, they are notable progress. With instruments like the Maputo Declaration, gender equality in Africa, the African Union Gender Strategy. Because once we are doing that, and people cannot identify themselves with issues that are being raised at continental level, that have been pronounced at continental level in Zimbabwe. During my time as Minister of Women Affairs and Community Development, there were a lot of laws to improve the level or to build the level playing field of women, youth, and men. Ministries were created, acts were enacted, but to some extent, you'll see that these are just acts and we would want to see more being implemented because people have already seen that the commitment by government is there. The commitment at continental level, yes, it's there. But when we are now beginning to involve and in practice, so that when we are talking of African dignity being implemented by governments, they should be able to feel that when we think of going back home, they are things that have already been started. Your Excellencies. So when we speak of the diasporians, the exclusion, like what others have said, becomes even more pronounced. Diaspora communities, despite being named an AU 60th region, are largely excluded from national and continental political processes. While advocacy for return of looted artifacts is gaining momentum, diaspora voices remain underrepresented in negotiating that we see much commendable efforts by member states in embracing diasporians, but still we need to see much being done at local levels, regional levels, and then continental. Regional and local levels, we also want to see our chiefs. Given the example of West Africa and Ghana in particular, that's where slave trade was really felt in its rawness. So when we are doing these things and we just involve certain levels of leadership and chiefs are left out, we might not be able to come up with the exact results that we would want to see as Africa. So, justice and restitution, like what others have said, reparations, often framed in economic or symbolic terms, with limited consultations or consultation of women on how restitution should be designed or delivered. So, talking about it, yes, it's a good thing. But consultations are more important because we are able to dig deep into how these things have caused harm, danger. We have seen that even confidence, dignity of women and youth is quite absent when, also to speak, when you want to really get to the core of how women and diasporians have actually been affected. So, against gender-based violence, like what others have said, climate justice and diasporian-led advocacy for reparations. These movements represent core demands of dignity, safety, and equitable governance. Your Excellencies, to advance a more just and inclusive future, we must institutionalize, like what the former president has said, women's and diasporian participation across AU structures. Embed gender and diaspora perspectives in all social justice and reparations frameworks, ensuring they reflect lived realities. Foster transcontinental networks, yes, and including those tribal or cultural leaders in order to link women on continental youths, the diaspora, not as to separate actors, but as a unified front for justice, dignity, and transformation. So, those few remarks, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. A fighter for freedom, a believer in the continuum of liberation, independence, good governance, implementation of the good governance policies, and noted both in the continent and in the diaspora. We thank you for emphasizing women, youth, subnational interaction consultations necessary. Excellencies, our next speaker, a former Prime Minister of the Republic of Tunisia. Excellencies, what is so unique about Tunisia? Will anyone give me a guess? But I will not hazard a guess. I will tell you that the name of our continent, the name of this great continent comes from from Tunisia, Africa. Excellencies, I'm not asking you about the history of the naming of our continent, but your leadership role as the first female Prime Minister of the Republic of Tunisia is very germane to this discourse. Madame Nadia will be speaking in French, and she will respond to this question: is Pan-African consensus possible in redefining the African quest for reparations? In that stead, Excellency, as a stateswoman, what inclusive governance policies will you recommend to this dialogue to integrate the diaspora into the transformation agenda of our different countries? Excellency, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Commissaire Bencolé. C'est pour moi un honneur immense que d'être ici à Accra, le centre du monde, et de participer à ce panel prestigieux. En réponse à votre question, Monsieur le modérateur, je tiens à affirmer avec conviction qu'un consensus panafricain sur les réparations est non seulement possible, mais indispensable, voire urgent. Toutefois, ce consensus doit être envisagé comme un processus de transformation collective et non comme une simple revendication tournée vers le passé, car il s'agit véritablement de co-construire urgemment la souveraineté africaine dans toutes ses dimensions économiques, alimentaires, énergétiques et bien entendu culturelles, comme l'ont souligné les orateurs par le passé. Sans cette souveraineté affirmée, nous ne pourrons ni négocier les réparations, ni les transformer en partenariats intelligents, durables et équilibrés. La réalisation de ce consensus exige un courage politique, une vision stratégique, une gouvernance inclusive et une capacité d'innover et de quitter les sentiers battus. Elle suppose également de poser des bases communes solides. Non en uniformisant nos récits, mais en partageant quelques principes clairs. Premièrement, la reconnaissance collective des injustices historiques, mais aussi contemporaines, subies par l'Afrique et sa diaspora, ainsi que des formes actuelles de colonialisme et de spoliation. Mesdames et messieurs, l'année 2024 s'est révélée l'une des plus violentes depuis la fin de la guerre froide. Et notre continent figure parmi les zones les plus touchées, avec des conséquences humanitaires dramatiques. Comment ne pas interroger la nature de la réparation nécessaire pour les 522 000 Soudanais déplacés dans ce qui constitue la plus grave crise de déplacement?
Here we have to strengthen coherence between justice, reconciliation, political reform, and economic development through real win-win partnerships like the technological transfer and equitable sharing of added value. Today, figures speak for themselves. I don't need to cite figures here. We need imperatively to reverse the trend. Indeed, the third principle is our commitment to negotiate collectively reparations and to speak with a single voice in international fora, that's G20, the United Nations, and I commend Africa's accession to the G20. Let us keep in mind, as has been underscored already, that currently the situation is, the perspectives are good for us. After marginalization of the South, after marginalization, the world is moving towards a multipolar world. Our continent must seize this economic opportunity and not only just to suffer from the rules imposed by the others, but contribute to redefining the rules, and that requires also collective in nature. Ladies and gentlemen, much progress has already been achieved, and it's good for us to stop and recall and look at them even briefly. First, the policy of justice adopted in 2019 constitutes a key instrument designed for and by Africans to connect memory, justice, and development. Also, the fate of Pan-Africanism is translated in increased coordination by regional groups, and it's also manifested through economic integration economics, COMESA and MCFTA. That's physical integration too, like port networks and transport networks, or other initiatives in the area of education and scientific research, like African Excellence Centers. Such initiatives demonstrate Africa's capacity to create, to mobilize skills, especially thanks to triangular partnerships, South-South and North, and the mobilization of Africa's diaspora. Also, the African organized in Tunis last year the very first Pan-African conference on illicit financial flows. That was illicit financial flows and corruption in general plunder key resources for our economies and impede our development efforts. Every year, it costs us more than 3.7% of GDP, Africa's GDP. The continent's reparation experiences, be it in Tunisia, in South Africa, in Liberia, or in Mauritius, or in Rwanda, or in Sierra Leone, demonstrate, ladies and gentlemen, the diversity of possible approaches. Those experiences must be documented, assessed, capitalized, so that we can draw the requisite lessons and to build trust in our capital justice. My country, Tunisia, for its part, at the initiative of the President of the Republic, harnessed the democratic transition process by establishing, carrying out ambitious reform, especially adopting after the referendum of 25 July 2022, after the national consultations, of a new constitution that places solidarity, social cohesion, and accountability at the very core of public life. The Tunisian diaspora was actively involved, thus contributing to the discussion of justice, social choices, and reconstruction. In mainstreaming the diaspora is therefore imperative. It is a strategic imperative. Today, we are about 1.5 million that live on the African continent, and this figure should double by 2050. More than 250 million of African descent live outside the continent, of course accounting for about a quarter of the world's population. Each year, about 70% qualified professionals leave Africa. And young diplomas, engineers, and medical practitioners. The diaspora is therefore a diplomatic, economic, and intellectual force that must be recognized. This theme by the previous speakers. So, to mainstream them. We already have efficient levers like supporting the work of the diaspora division of the African Union, strengthen its participation in the priorities of Agenda 2063, and build on national good practices such as the Diaspora Forum organized by Tunisia to promote investment and cultural diplomacy, or the World Diaspora Council of Algeria that encourages improvement of competencies and investment. Other initiatives also need to be developed, and I know that there are many who are working actively on this theme. I will especially recommend the establishment of a high council of reparations, including both the state, the diaspora, and civil societies, and also to speed up the scientific partnership of transnational universities and sponsorship programs for young women and business women. Africa Gateway, a flagship program built with the European Union, should catalyze the development of African skills. Building a Pan-African consensus on reparations is not an utopian dream. It is a political drive, but it is an equitable transformation of our societies. It is in this kind of convergence between memory, political action, and African unity that we have the key of Africa that is achieve reparations, that is strong and that is respected. Chair, could I take 2 minutes because I cannot wrap off without speaking to our more strategic tools, and especially our young women and youth. To the youth, I would like to echo the message conveyed by the representative of the Pan-African Youth Organization during the recent high-level United Nations Youth Percent that are less than 25 years old, and 57% are between 15 and 35 years. Your sense of innovation and your understanding of digital technology should be harnessed so that you can participate actively to the building of the Africa we want. To our women, and I will conclude with this, I recognize your incommensurable potential that you hold the position of head of government in Tunisia and in the Arab world for, during a critical period of the history of my country that was exacerbated by COVID-19 and the start of the war in Ukraine. I was supported by a government and a cabinet made up of 40% of women, many of who had Regalian portfolios. Indeed, that strengthened awareness raising for women, especially in the enactment of legal opportunities and regulations to build equal opportunities for all, to strengthen social equality and inclusion for all. Also, access to financial resources is crucial for inclusive empowerment of women and young people. I especially defend this cause, and to be here with you is part of that journey. I want to thank you for your wonderful patience.
Thank you for reminding us to remember more necessary but illustrative content. It is so important that we will partnership household cooperation intra-continental agreements lead us to more society. Thank you, President.